The 24th of July 1943, 0:57 hours. Hamburg, Germany. The Elbe lies black and still beneath the moon, a ribbon of ink cutting through the sleeping city. Church bells stand frozen. Windows are dark. Somewhere, a tram cable hums in the night breeze. Then the sky begins to whisper. Not the roar yet, just a distant vibration, too steady to be thunder, too heavy to be wind. High above the cloud layer, unseen engines turn with mechanical patience. The sound grows, led, multiplied, until it presses against the rooftops like a held breath. In a concrete bunker south of the city, a German radar operator leans closer to his scope. Green phosphorite paints his face an unhealthy hue. The screen blooms with dots, hundreds of them, marching east in disciplined formation. Too many. He adjusts the gain. The dots smear. They multiply again. The screen fills, then dissolves into a snowstorm of echoes. Das ist unmöglich, someone mutters behind him. Outside, the first flares fall. They drift down slowly, parachutes blossoming like pale flowers against the darkness. The city is suddenly outlined in ghostly white. Canals, warehouses, rail yards, every target drawn with surgical clarity. Hamburg is no longer a city. It is a diagram. Above 20,000 feet, a bomber crew watches the lights ignite. Inside the aircraft, the air smells of oil, sweat, and cold metal. Oxygen masks hiss. A navigator traces lines on a chart with a gloved finger, voice tight but controlled. The bomber lies flat in the nose, staring down through glass at a city he cannot hear, cannot smell, cannot feel, only see. Below them, the first explosions bloom. Orange flashes punch through the streets. Shockwaves ripple across rooftops. Somewhere, a factory wall collapses inward like paper. The anti-aircraft guns answer at last. Black puffs erupt around the bombers, bursts of flak climbing blindly into the night. The aircraft shudders as a near miss rocks the fuselage. Shards of steel scream past the wings. A gunner laughs once, too loud, too sharp, then goes quiet. Back in the radar bunker, the scope is useless now. The operator slams a fist against the console. The sky has lied to him. What should be clean, trackable, controllable has turned to fog. Command posts demand numbers, headings, altitudes. He has none. Over Hamburg, fires begin to join hands. A warehouse burns. A block of flats ignites. Sparks leap across streets, carried by a rising wind born of heat. The flames start to breathe, drawing air inward, feeding themselves, growing taller, hotter, faster. Civilians run. They pour into streets clutching children, blankets, documents. Air raid wardens shout directions that lead nowhere. Shelters fill beyond capacity. Doors slam. Sirens wail too late to matter. Above it all, more bombers arrive. Wave after wave, engines droning with indifferent rhythm. Bomb bay doors open. Steel cylinders fall away, tumbling silently for long seconds before gravity remembers them. The explosions overlap now. There is no beginning or end, just impact, fire, pressure. The city's night sky turns red, then white, then something brighter still. In the cockpit, the pilot holds course. Training overrides instinct. Hands steady, eyes forward. He does not look down again, because below, Hamburg is changing. Streets become chimneys. The wind howls inward, feeding a growing inferno. Asphalt softens. Roof collapse. Oxygen vanishes from basements where families huddle, candles guttering out one by one. This is not a raid anymore. This is something else. And far from the flames, across the North Sea, men wait beside radios, stopwatches in hand, listening to reports that make no sense. Radar blindness. Enemy defenses silent, then overwhelmed. Losses, far fewer than expected. A word begins to circulate, cautious at first. Effective. No one yet understands why. Back over Hamburg, the bombers turn for home. The sky behind them glows like dawn, though it is still deep night. Smoke columns punch through cloud layers, visible from miles away. The crews are exhausted. Some are elated. Some are silent. None of them know exactly what they have unleashed. On the ground, the firestorm tightens its grip. And in the radar bunker, the operator stares at his dead screen, realizing, with a cold, creeping certainty, that tonight, the rules of the war in the air have changed. But the reason is still falling from the sky, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be understood. 012 hours, Northern Germany, Luftwaffe Air Defense Sector. The telephone rings without pause. Operators shout bearings that contradict each other. Intercepts overlap. Fighter controllers lean over plotting tables littered with grease pencil marks that no longer mean anything. The sky, once neatly mapped, has become a hallucination. On radar scopes across the RAF, the impossible continues. Contact appear when nothing exists. Massive bomber streams fracture into clouds, then recombine, then vanish entirely. The green glow pulses and flickers, drowning real aircraft in a blizzard of false echoes. A senior officer grips the edge of a console, knuckles white. Years of doctrine, altitude bands, box formations, timed interceptions are collapsing in real time. Recalibrate. He snaps. They already have. Again and again. Nothing changes. Somewhere over the North Sea, a night fighter climbs into the dark. The pilot scans a void ahead, waiting for ground control to vector him toward prey. Instead, the radio crackles with uncertainty. Target, unclear. Multiple returns. Stand by. Minutes pass. Fuel burns. The bomber stream slips through unseen. Inside the cockpit, frustration turns to dread. The hunter has been blinded. Back over Hamburg, the second wave arrives. This time, the city is already burning. The glow reaches up to meet the bombers, reflecting off bellies and wings, painting them in hellish orange. Smoke towers into the sky, thick and oily, forcing crews to climb higher, masks icing over with condensation. Bomb doors open again. The explosions tear into a city already stripped of resistance. Fire jumps canals. Warehouses erupt. Entire neighborhoods are swallowed as if inhaled by the flames. The wind now roars at hurricane force, drawn inward by the heat. People are knocked off their feet. Trees bend toward the inferno. In shelters, oxygen thins. Heat presses down like a physical weight. Some try to flee and are pulled back toward the fire by invisible hands of air. Above it all, the bombers fly on. Inside one aircraft, a wireless operator watches a clock tick forward. He knows the defenses should be worse. They train for walls of flak, swarms of fighters. Instead, scattered bursts, blind shots, confusion. Something is wrong, or something has gone terribly right. Hours later, as dawn approaches, the last aircraft turn west. Behind them, Hamburg is unrecognizable, a single, smoldering wound carved into the earth. Across Germany, radar crews finally begin to piece together the anomaly. Reports mention strange returns, unusual signal patterns. A rain of something, thin, metallic, reflective, falling slowly from the sky. Not bombs, not flays, something else. In briefing rooms, intelligence officers exchange uneasy looks. If the enemy has found a way to make themselves invisible, to multiply themselves into phantoms, then every assumption about air defense is obsolete. The night has not just destroyed a city. It has exposed a fatal weakness. And the explanation lies not in the bombers, but in what they quietly released, handful by handful, into the darkness. A simple idea, with catastrophic consequences. Earlier that night, 22:40 hours, over the North Sea, the order comes quietly. No fanfare, no explanation. Window, release. A crewman reaches into a storage bin and pulls out a bundle tied with string. It looks harmless, lightweight, almost absurd compared to the bomb stacked nearby. He hesitates a half a second, then feeds it into the flare chute. The slipstream snatches it away. Behind the aircraft, the bundle bursts apart. Thousands of thin aluminum strips spill into the night, fluttering, spinning, drifting downward like metallic snow. They catch the moonlight for an instant, then disappear. More bombers follow. Each aircraft releases its own silver cloud, mile after mile, until the sky itself is seeded with reflections. The strips fall at just the right rate, cut to just the right length. To radar, they look perfect. Too perfect. Back in Germany, radar operators watch their scopes drown. Every strip returns a signal. Every signal looks like an aircraft. Altitudes overlap. Speeds make no sense. The system cannot tell steel wings from falling foil. The defense network chokes on information. Fighter controllers issue orders that lead nowhere. Flak batteries fire at ghosts. Ammunition is wasted into empty sky while real bombers pass untouched overhead. This is not technological superiority. It is deception. Simple, elegant, ruthless. Months earlier, scientists warned of this very possibility. Both sides knew the idea. Both feared it. And both avoided it, afraid the enemy would copy it in days. Tonight, that fear is ignored. In the air, bomber crews watch the strips drift past their windows, glinting faintly. Some laugh in disbelief. Others feel a chill. If something this simple works, what else might? Below, Hamburg pays a price. The firestorm reaches maturity. Temperatures so beyond anything recorded in a city before. Brick glows red. Steel warps. People seeking refuge are suffocated where they stand. The wind feeds the flames with relentless hunger, dragging oxygen from surrounding districts. The city becomes its own weather system. From miles away, pilots see the smoke column twist upward, punching through cloud layers. Lightning flickers inside it, born of heat and ash. The target marker flares are no longer needed. The fire marks itself. As dawn breaks, reconnaissance aircraft will photograph the aftermath. Miles of flattened streets. Charred outlines where buildings once stood. A city center erased. But at this moment, none of that is known. What is known, slowly, painfully, is that German air defense has failed. And worse, it failed not because it was weak, but because it was tricked. As the last aluminum strips settle onto fields, rivers, and rooftops, a realization begins to spread through command channels. The war in the air has crossed the threshold. There is no going back, because now the secret is out, and the enemy will learn. The 25th of July 1943, 6:30 hours. Hamburg, daylight reveals what the night concealed. The sun rises through a haze of smoke so thick it turns morning into twilight. Streets no longer have names, only directions through rubble. Rail lines twist like broken wire. Canals are choked with debris, their surfaces filmed with ash and oil. The firestorm has burned itself out. What remains still radiates heat. Rescue crews move cautiously, boots crunching over glass and brick. Helmets are pulled low. Faces are gray with soot, eyes red from smoke and disbelief. They step around craters large enough to swallow buildings, past walls peeled open to expose rooms frozen in their final moments. There is no sound at first, no traffic, no birds, only the distant crackle of cooling ruins. Then the cries begin. From cellars, from shelters that held, but barely. Men and women claw through debris with bare hands, driven by names they keep repeating under their breath. Some find survivors. Many do not. Across the city, officials struggle to count the uncountable. Communications are down. Hospitals overflow, then fail as power collapses and water mains rupture. Fire crews discover hydrants that run dry, the underground pipes melted by heat. And everywhere, the same question echoes. How did this happen? In Luftwaffe headquarters, the mood is brittle. Reports arrive in fragments. Radar blindness. Fighter losses minimal, but irrelevant. The bombers were never truly engaged. Investigators visit radar sites. They sweep floors, fields, rooftops. And they find it. Thin strips of aluminum lying in drifts. Hanging from trees. Floating in rivers. Crumpled underfoot like discarded tinsel. An officer picks one up. Turns it between his fingers. Lightweight. Precisely cut. Understanding dawns with sickening clarity. This was no accident. It was a weapon. Across the channel, in England, assessments are already underway. Analysts pore over mission reports, lost figures, photographs of burning Hamburg. The numbers tell a story too stark to ignore. Bomber losses are dramatically lower. Target devastation unprecedented. A senior officer breaks the silence in the room. It worked. The word carries weight, relief, and something darker. Because success brings consequences. Orders follow quickly. Window is no longer a secret to be hoarded. It is to be used again and again against new cities, new targets, new defenses. The men who plan it understand what this means. The enemy will adapt. They always do. But adaptation takes time. Time bought with aluminum and fire. In Hamburg, evacuation begins. Hundreds of thousands flee the city, carrying what little they can salvage. Trains overflow. Roads clog with carts and bicycles. The city empties of life, leaving behind a scorched shell. And yet, even as the smoke clears, the sky remains a true battlefield. Because now, both sides know. The age of certainty, of seeing the enemy clearly, of trusting the instruments, is over. The air war has become a contest of illusion. And the next blow is already being planned. Autumn 1943. Europe. The aluminum rain falls again. Over new targets. New cities. New skies once thought secure. Bomber streams carve invisible corridors through enemy airspace while radar screens bloom into lies. False masses. Phantom wings. Targets without substance. Defenses adapt. Slowly. Filters are introduced. New frequencies tested. Operators learn to doubt their own eyes, to separate instinct from instrumentation. Fighters are sent up on probability, not certainty. Flak patterns widen, guessing instead of tracking. But the balance has shifted. Every raid now carries uncertainty, not just for those below, but for those trying to stop it. The sky is no longer a transparent battlefield. It is a hole of mirrors. In planning rooms, casualty charts are rewritten. Loss projections fall. Range expands. Confidence hardens into doctrine. What began as a risk, long debated, long delayed, becomes standard practice. Window is renamed. Chaff, a mundane word for a revolutionary idea. By the time German countermeasures take hold, the damage is already done. The Allies have learned how to blind without destroying, how to deceive without engaging, how to turn physics into a weapon. Hamburg becomes a reference point, not just for devastation, but for transformation. From that night forward, no major air operation will be planned without deception at its core. Invasions will depend on it. Escapes will hinge on it. Survival will demand it. And radar, once the unblinking eye, will never again be trusted completely. Years later, veterans will struggle to explain the feeling of that shift. How something so small changed something so vast. How a handful of foil strips, drifting quietly through the dark, could unmake an entire system. But those who were there remember, the night the screens went white, the guns fired at ghosts, the bombers passed untouched overhead, and the war in the air crossed a line it would never retreat from.